we had a large property that we were holding for investment purposes, which we eventually sold. If you think interest rates are high now, try 13.9.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Diversified. I'm your host, Melvin Landry, and today we have a fantastic guest, one who I've gotten to know over the years. And look, he's a mover and shaker in real estate and other type of alternative assets as well. So I want to be the first to introduce my buddy, my friend, partner, Mr. Bruce Mandel. Welcome to the show, sir. How we doing?
Good morning. How are you? Welcome from the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, okay, man. So look, we're on different sides of the world, but hey, thank goodness the technology, it can connect us at different points in time. And look, man, it is indeed a pleasure to have you here on the show, and looking forward to having you share your knowledge and your wealth of information for the listeners.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting.
Let's do it. So, Bruce, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about you? We know you're in the Northwest part of the world. Let's talk a little bit about your real estate journey, the growth trajectory, some pitfalls. Tell us a little bit about Bruce, the man, the legend.
The legend, not hardly. No, my parents were immigrants to this country, and we had the opportunity to grow up on a large piece of land. I learned a lot about land, if you will, and growing fruits. We grew olives, and so it just sort of attracts you to the ground. So I went to an UC Davis, which would be considered an A&E, an agriculture and engineering school, got a degree in chemical and environmental engineering, and then off I went from there. So I'm, as you probably can judge by my hair color, I'm not, spring chicken. I'll be 70 next year. But my best friend and I learned a lot about real estate initially back in late 70s, like 79, when we bought our first duplex. And if people think interest rates are high now, I had a military stint. So when I got a steal on interest rates, and we bought it for 28.9, and the interest rate on that, because I had a VA loan, was 13.9%. The market was 19. So if you think interest rates are high now, try 13.9. Now, we didn't have to put a lot of money down, but 79 is different. But at the end of the day, it's still expensive. And so we learned from there. And we took that, we parlayed that 2 years later into a triplex. And we did so well, we forgot to continue doing it. So we made our money, and we had to split up because of travels and life, etc. So, fast forward to years later, in the mid 80s, my wife and I got married, and we bought our first investment home, no money down. They carried the note, and because I was the cheapest guy I knew, I remember pulling copper wire over aluminum in Minnesota in December at 20 below. So let me tell you, after doing that and a few other things, I decided that maybe I ought to think about hiring other people to help do those kinds of things. Interesting journey. I don't recommend wiring your house at 20 below.
So hey, you're getting into real estate. You've had some unique experiences, right? So at what point, right? You've been in the game for a while. When did you feel a need in terms of diversification and to accelerate that facet of diversification?
It's a really good question, Mel. So my career was initially in transportation, and then in the late 80s, I went into the investment world. So I worked for an insurance company for a number of years, and then a bank, and then for a large money manager. And it precluded me oftentimes from making certain kinds of investments because of conflict of interest. But it allowed for me to do my own investing, buy on my own, much like, we've talked about a lot of buying individual or duplexes, et cetera. So it right around the crater of the market, for many people, they think it's '08. It's actually, the market ran up really big from 92 to 2000. And as the market cratered in 2000, my wife and I decided we had a little bit of money, and we're going to buy some duplexes. So that's when we really started to go out on our own, individual investing, buying duplexes and diversifying there from single families. We had a large property that we were holding for investment purposes, which we eventually sold. But we really started to do duplexes, and as the opportunity presented it, much like you and I have talked about this, is, I like the neighborhood, so I'll just buy a little bit more and buy a little bit more and buy a little bit more. So we elevated ourselves to owning at one point 10 duplexes, 4 houses, and a large farm parcel. Right? It happened over a period of about 15 years. And I made the decision that I needed to diversify further when, after taking my first vacation, probably 5 years, we were in Hawaii. It was Christmas Eve, 4 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang. It was one of my tenants complaining about the water overflowing in their toilet, and started to ask a few questions about, hey, how come you're doing that? What's going on? And it turns out, long story short, that one of her children had flushed a doll head down the toilet and it got stuck. Obviously, you solved that problem. And that's when I made the decision, okay, I'm not the cheapest guy I know anymore, and I don't necessarily like to be woken up on vacation. So I'm going to shift to another strategy and maybe have somebody else be the manager and I'll invest with them, much like you and I met a while ago doing.
Okay. Yeah. Indeed. Look, I've heard the stories. I've been there also as well, kind of getting the calls with issues, right? And the kid, or the little girl, little boy, doesn't matter, flushing the doll head down the toilet. It has happened to every last one of us. So totally get and understand that so-called service call. So totally get and understand what you're saying there. So, so as we kind of fast forward, right, let's kind of get down to the terms of, your reasoning for, I went to a seminar, I was intrigued, I was fired up, took action, my trajectory, I'm getting to cruising altitude right now. So in terms of my regrowth in real estate, right, because I grew it, end up having to sell it, etc. I want to kind of talk about the multifamily growth, right, in terms of where, your vision, your viewpoint, as you were kind of getting into multifamily and from that aspect. Look, we're in it, we're involved in it, right? We invest active, passive. Your viewpoint may be a little different. Your approach may be a little different. We'd love to hear your point of view, listeners, and kind of see your approach as you kind of wrapped up into multifamily and bigger.
Sure. Great question. So with that advent of that problem, over the course of the next year, we just basically liquidated all of that and started to move it. And of course, in doing that, we had to figure out where we're going to move the money. I opted, candidly, from a tax planning standpoint, to take all the tax losses and gains and pay my bill right there and reset in 2015. And in the process of resetting, we went to numbers of seminars and decided to invest with a number of people passively initially because we weren't ready. I wasn't ready to take on 100, 200, 300, 400 units, whatever it might be. And that was very good for us. We did extremely well. And of course, the markets were very good. And as we transitioned into 2020, we saw the markets shifting. We actually are general partners on a number of things. I bring a little different expertise because of my engineering background. So I think about things a little bit differently than a lot of people do. It's not just numbers. It's actually what's the asset and how do we optimize the asset? And so even though the numbers can make sense, there may not be optimization that's available there. So I think about the asset and the investment from the optimization. I use an acronym called POP, P-O-P, which is perspective, objective, and people. Perspective is how long do you want to own it for? Where are you in that perspective, right? Is it short, medium, or long term? Now, at almost 70, everybody would say, well, you really don't have a long-term perspective. I said, well, I actually do. My wife is 5 years my junior, and I have children. And so, I'm cash flow is kind of okay, but I'm really looking at this from a long-term perspective, and how does that fit? Right. And so that gives me perspective. Objective is when you buy the asset, you need to know why you're buying that asset for. How does it fit into your particular approach, right? So not sometimes, all the time when I go into the piece. So you and I've had that conversation about investing in Section 8 type projects, right? So a Section 8 project, that objective for me is way different than if we're buying, you and I going into being, limited or passive and limited partners and saying, okay, I'm going to hold on to this thing, let them do all the work, et cetera, right? Because we get involved with the Section 8 stuff, making sure that we're providing a real life change potentially for the people that we invest with. So that is when you think about objectives, that's how I think about that piece. And the final piece is people. And I've written about this many times. If you haven't seen my stuff, at magicequity.net, people are the most important and critical asset you have in investing, plain and simple. I'm on this call with you, my friend, Melvin Landry, because I like you. I know your ethics and morals. I would not be on it with other people. And when you go into things, it's better. You have to trust them like you would trust yourself. If you can't do that, then you don't do that investment. So when you think about the journey, it begins with who you doing business with, right? It's a witty-whiffy question. Witty-whiffy, what do you want for yourself? But it's also, what do you want for others?
I mean, it's a question that you absolutely must ask every single time. Look, we roll in similar circles. We may not all roll in the same circle, but I tell you one thing. Look, there are a couple of individuals and subgroups that I wish I would have turned the cheek and went the other way. Okay. So, but again, that comes over time. Look, you got an acronym of a day for me, man. POP, perspective, objective, and people. And the people aspect in many cases are the most important, because if you have that alignment, your perspectives and your objectives viewpoint tend to mesh, and you get to that positive a favorable result at the end of the day.
Absolutely. You're welcome to it. Spread the word, Melvin. Spread the word.
I will. It'll be a new social handle in terms of from a host standpoint. So thanks for sharing that. So another question for you, Bruce. You've in a number of passive investments. You're active also as well. Other people out there may be thinking about, hey, I got 50, 75K sitting somewhere. I need to put it to work. It's not doing no good in the bank, sitting there collecting dust, which could be $5, $10 a quarter. That ain't going to get us anywhere. Right? What advice would you tell them in addition if they're considering an opportunity or if someone has bought an opportunity kind of to them and they're brand new? There's a lot of folks out there who are brand new. There's a lot of folks who just don't know that, hey, getting diversified in terms of different type of avenues of how you could expand, put your money to work for it to grow some legs and potentially give you some tax benefits also as well, which is also an added plus, or like we say, cherry on top.
Jacqueline and Melvin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of Get Diversified. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes. Finally, stop by our website and follow us on social media. Ciao for now. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time. And remember, get diversified.